On December 7th, 1941, the Empire of Japan sent a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, an American naval base in Oahu, Hawaii. Japan was attempting to claim the natural resources of the Pacific. This event led to America's entry into World War II and reformed the United States' military strategy for decades to come. This is Pearl Harbor today, and this is Pearl Harbor in May of 1940, just 10 months before the attack, getting built to house the United States Pacific Fleet. The fleet moved from San Diego to Hawaii in May of 1940, and the base was temporarily used as a spring exercise location. The purpose of the base was then changed to providing a permanent home for the fleet in the Pacific Ocean, acting as a deterrent against Japanese expansion. In February of 1941, the base became extremely prominent and the fleet was elevated in training to prepare them in case Japan made a move. Japan was eager to get more land and resources due to the fear of losing Germany as an ally as World War II was heating up. The only issue was the Lend-Lease Act, which was signed on March 11, 1941 by the United States. It prepared America's military with peacetime drafts and froze all Japanese assets. These acts and drafts were not enough. Japan was under a total oil embargo, leaving them in a desperate position. Japan was faced with severe shortages of essential resources, and this is what ultimately led to the fateful day on December 7, 1941. After the lease was signed, Japan acted quickly and then signed the Japan-Soviet Neutrality Pact. This pact gave Japan a geographical advantage because of the new defense on its northern border. On March 27, 1941, Japanese spy Takeo Yoshikawa arrived in Honolulu, Hawaii, and began to study the United States fleet at Pearl Harbor. This was followed by U.S. intelligence intercepting the Japanese plans to attack Southeast Asia at the start of July 1941. In response to the Japanese occupation of French Indochina, a group of French-dependent territories in Southeast Asia, in mid-July, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt ordered the seizure of all Japanese assets in the United States. In September, the Japanese Imperial Conference decided that Japan would go to war with the United States if the oil embargo on them was not lifted. In mid-October, the government of Japanese Prime Minister Prince Fumimaro Konoe collapsed, leaving little hope for peace in the Pacific. Just 4 days later, the negotiations in Washington, D.C. between the United States and Japan were headed towards failure. On November 17th, when tensions were high, Joseph Grew, the United States' ambassador to Japan, cabled the State Department that Japan had a plan to launch an attack against Pearl Harbor. While no images of the original telegram are available today, we do know that his cable was ignored. In late November, a Japanese attack fleet of 33 warships and auxiliary craft, including 6 aircraft carriers, sailed from northern Japan to the Hawaiian Islands in secrecy. This is where the destruction began. The calm of an early December Sunday was shattered by the sudden roar of aircraft. At 7:48 a.m., Pearl Harbor was attacked by the Japanese Mobile Strike Force, also known as Kido Butai. Led by Vice Admiral Shiushi Nagumo, the fleet consisted of over 60 vessels and hundreds of aircraft. This entire force was sent to the base of Pearl Harbor that morning to try to regain some of the military power and natural resources in the Pacific Ocean that the US was holding. Within 2 hours, the Japanese military inflicted devastating losses on the American Pacific Fleet. Of the 8 US battleships present, all were damaged and 4 were sunk, killing more than 2,400 out of the 50,000 people near Pearl Harbor at the time. Japan attacked additional locations on Oahu, including Wheeler Field and Hickam Field. Wheeler Field was established in 1922 and became a key Army Air Corps pursuit base. Hickam Field was also important. It served as the headquarters for the Pacific Air Forces and was a primary hub for aerial mobility, supporting Pacific operations. Both were heavily targeted. Japan thought it was a smart move to advance on all of these sites, but they were proven mistaken. The next day, on December 8, 1941, President Roosevelt addressed the nation.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
He then declared war on Japan, along with Italy and Germany promptly after that. The US, out of fear, began to create internment camps for exactly 120,000 Japanese Americans, most of whom were American citizens. The US then switched to producing products towards the war, such as bullet casings, gunpowder, and other necessities. This was the ultimate end to the Great Depression by giving people jobs because of the American men being drafted into wars. With all of the men going into the war, the women would then go into the farms and factories to take the men's jobs. At this time, the United States was still in the progress of making the nuclear bomb under the guidance of Robert Oppenheimer, but the expectancy for completion was still 4 years away. Without this weapon, the US had to resort to old-school combat on enemy lines, but after World War I, the United States did not have a strong military with only around 200,000 men. To change this, the US registered 36 million men under their Selective Training and Service Act and ended up drafting 10 million. This took their army from minuscule to mighty. Japan was beginning to become frightened. The United States had reacted quickly and effectively for war while Japan was still drowning in economic debt and a lack of natural resources. They began scrambling to secure the country and the few resources they still had. Germany, making great progress on taking over the entirety of Europe, looked at this act and brushed it off its shoulder, truly underestimating the new strength of the US Army. But Hitler still saw it as less than ideal on his quest for European prosperity. As the end of 1944 came, Germany was facing defeat, and as the Soviet Union started pushing back, it appeared defeat was definite. The end of the war came in 1945 with the power of the Soviet Union, Britain, and the US too much for the Nazi regime. Hitler surrendered and committed suicide. But the US was still sour about Japan destroying the most powerful ships in its navy and killing 3,000 of its men. So, on August 6, 1945, the United States dropped 2 bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, some of the biggest cities in Japan at the time, killing over 300,000 people and making those places uninhabitable for decades to come. In conclusion, through the development of the main nuclear bomb that was created after Pearl Harbor, these events cemented the US as a military superpower and changed not only its, but the world's military strategies and weapons forever.